Well, for everybody who said they'd wait till it came out on video, it came out on video. I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle now. And Bill, this morning, we are recording this in the midst of Robert Mueller's testimony before the House Judiciary Committee. And because we don't know what's going to happen later in the day as part of this committee hearing, as well as a further committee hearing that he's going to do after this one today, I'd really rather try to stay focused on general approaches taken by Democrats and Republicans in the way that Mueller is generally handling it. I'm sure some bombshell quote is going to come out of this that's going to have both sides barking and howling at the moon. But let's just focus on the broader picture at this point. Bill, basically, it looked like the Democrats' strategy seems to have been that most people haven't read this report, the Mueller report of the investigation of Russian interference in the 2016 election, and then the follow-up volume 2 of the potential allegations of obstruction of justice on the part of the president and people around him. The Democrats' plan seems to have been to parse out sections of that obstruction of justice claim to each one of their members and have them essentially read Robert Mueller's report back to him and ask him if he remembers writing it.
Great.
You think that's a wise strategy?
No, which is why it makes me very happy. It doesn't matter what quotes come out of this. It doesn't matter what revelations come out of this. The only thing that matters are there criminal charges of any kind coming out of this? And I rather suspect not, because I don't think Mueller would have folded his hand publicly if he had anything to go on. So basically, we all know that what this is just another campaign to just continue to try to delegitimize Donald Trump. That's really the best word for it, is delegitimize him. Make the election of Donald Trump seem, if not criminal, then certainly accidental, to the degree that if the American people had really known what they were voting for, then they certainly would have woken up. You know, he's been president for a year and a half now, 2.5 years, right, Scott? Something like that. And these people still haven't figured out, the Democrats, I mean, they still haven't figured out that we don't care. We don't care.
Well, I think they have figured that out, Bill, and I think the thrust of this, and here's why I say that, the thrust of this hearing seems to be the American people don't care, but the reason why they don't care is because they don't really understand the Mueller report. And the reason they don't understand the Mueller report is because Attorney General William Barr released a 4-page summary of it that said no collusion, no obstruction of justice, and President Trump has repeated that. But in fact, in the Democrats' reading of this report, it did say no collusion, and Robert Mueller has, again, affirmed what his report says with regard to that. But it didn't say no obstruction of justice. It said that the prosecutor, in this case the Special Counsel Mueller, could not reach a prosecutorial decision because of a previous ruling by the Office of Legal Counsel that it would be unconstitutional to charge a sitting president. And the Democrats, I think, are setting the table for potential impeachment or indictment proceedings after the president leaves office, which is permitted, and Robert Mueller acknowledged is permitted.
First of all, in the grand scheme of things, and I'm speaking about the country now, I'm not speaking about the man who I have personal feelings towards, just like I do for just about everybody else that comes into my personal horizon on one form or another. From a national history of the United States point of view, I don't care if they launch criminal charges against him after he's president. I don't care. I care for him because I don't believe he's done any of this stuff. And if I thought, as we've said many times before, if the Mueller report had come back with solid, irrefutable evidence of felonious, impeachable behavior on the part of the president, then because I believe in the rule of law above, that is a core principle of mine. And integrity is a core principle of mine. I try as hard as I can to maintain it. And while I think that would have been a catastrophe, we'd have President Pence and so on. I don't think that there's going to be anything. It's not going to matter after Trump is out of office, Scott. This is crystal clear to everybody. It's completely transparent, which is why I am so happy to hear this news.
Bill, I want to be clear about what I think that the Democrats are trying to achieve here. It's not that they think that there are no criminal offenses. It's not that they think that there are no impeachable offenses. I think they realize the political reality that they're probably not going to get an impeachment vote, or at least while Nancy Pelosi is Speaker of the House. But I think they do believe that they're laying the groundwork in a way that'll be politically beneficial to them for actual criminal charges after the president leaves office. Now, whether you care about what happens to President Trump after he leaves office or not, this makes the Republican president during his second four-year term, if he should win re-election, kind of a lame duck from the beginning, because people have seen that, as a matter of fact, he did try to get to have Don McGahn release a statement that Don McGahn believed wasn't true. That's his White House counsel, that he did try to send Corey Lewandowski to fire or to tell Attorney General Jeff Sessions that he was fired, that he did try to get Attorney General Jeff Sessions to unrecuse himself, that he did do this series of things that were designed to impede the investigation, that he wanted Robert Mueller fired, and he made it very clear to his underlings that he wanted him removed. Now, the Trump administration would challenge the details of all of that, but Bill, the Democrats are going to leave a mark, aren't they?
No. First of all, every single one of the things that you mentioned were certainly not only admissible, but required. When you have this entire investigation in the hands of Robert Mueller, whose ties to the Clintons go back so long and so deep, and when you see this deep state revelations about Brennan and Comey and Mueller and all the rest of it, if I was Donald Trump, I would have used everything in my means, every power within my legal means to make sure that that this witch hunt wasn't being accelerated. I think he did exactly the right thing on this. But this is the much larger point. These idiots continue to think that if they flog this dead horse hard enough, it's going to carry them over the finish line in November. You said that if this scores, Donald Trump's going to be a lame duck president from his reelection in 2020. To the degree of what you're talking about, he was a lame duck president the Wednesday after the election in 2016. This entire period has been nothing but delegitimizing Donald Trump, his presidency, but much more importantly, believe it or not, much more importantly, it is the battle of the political elites against the American people. And that's what is going on here. It is this ongoing fight between the political elites and the American people who got up on their hind legs and didn't do what they were supposed to do. And so now they are not only having a combination of temper tantrum and this kind of hysterical disciplinary kind of things, running around caning everybody in the room and screaming that they'll burn the school down if one more boy utters another peep. And they're just lost their minds. And so if they want to focus on this, and if they want to continue to beat this issue that has been so badly thrashed around from the beginning, tell me what this is going to do for them. Is this going to suddenly change the way progressives feel about Donald Trump? I suspect it's not. Is it going to change the way conservatives feel about Donald Trump? It's going to make the people who voted for Donald Trump and who actively support him even more. And it's going to take some people on the margins and make them realize that what this Democratic Party is now is a collection of socialist loons and vicious, backbiting, cynical losers, undoubtedly powered by Hillary Clinton. And I think that this makes them smell even worse, and they weren't smelling so good going into this, Scotty.
Now, Bill, this is a perfect segue into the GOP approach to this hearing. And I will say, in my early monitoring of the House Judiciary testimony by Robert Mueller, that it's not playing out the way the Democrats had hoped, in the sense that they were really trying to get him to say the things that were in his report for all the people who didn't read the report, when in fact, almost every time Robert Mueller would give a one-word answer to a question, to a yes or no question, or he would say, I would refer you to the report. The report is my testimony, over and over and over.
What does that tell you?
So what we got really was Democrats reading the report to the American people, which I think is going to play out as much less effective. The Republican strategy is a little bit of what you indicated, is trying to insinuate that there were political motives, for example, in the hiring of Peter Strzok and his lover, Lisa Page, who were found to be virulent anti-Trump people. And they were questioning Mr. Mueller about when he became aware that Peter Strzok was so opposed to President Trump. So there were two approaches basically for the Republicans. One is to indicate that there might have been some political bias in not only who was part of the team, but what they decided to pursue and what they didn't decide to pursue, specifically regarding connections between the Clintons and Russia. The other approach, and this was really driven home by Representative John Ratcliffe from Texas, who basically said, what kind of legal standard are you using to write this report? You've inverted the burden of proof. Since when is a prosecutor charged to announce that he cannot exonerate a suspect? And I'll give you the quote from Mueller. Robert Mueller said, "The president was not exculpated for the acts he allegedly committed." Democrats are touting this bill as if it was damning. Do you have charges,
yes or no? Do you have charges, yes or no? Because if you cannot bring charges, then he is exculpated by the definition of our legal system. The presumption of innocence means he's innocent. If you cannot bring criminal charges that will stand the burden of beyond a reasonable doubt, then he is innocent. And this is what the American people are realizing more and more every day. They're realizing this is a life and death struggle between people who think that they can make the law for their own personal political power versus those of us that still happen to think that we have a country, a rule of law, and the idea that the American people can elect Bozo the Clown if they want to, but it's not up to somebody else to say, well, we don't approve of that choice, so go out and vote again until you get it right.
Do you really think the American people value the presumption of innocence more than they do the kind of innuendo that's being slung around during this hearing?
Well, I know that's a little bit sarcastic, but there's also enough truth to it to bear a serious answer. This strategy on the part of the Democrats is self-destructive, and it pleases me because it's self-destructive. But the one thing we're not seeing here is, look, it's like Donald Trump is a battleship. And it's all these shells are coming in, and there's like little fires on the superstructure, but the armor is deflecting the killing shots. Yeah, guns are getting blown up and smoke and fire, and it looks like and they can claim it's sinking because it's burning and all the smoke's coming out of it. But all that battleship has done is absorb damage. And I want that battleship to get out the big guns now, and I want it to start inflicting some damage. I want to see what the Iowa will do when all 9 of those 16-inch guns, I think they were, open up on a target. So if it turns out that there is no investigation into the investigation, if it turns out that Hillary Clinton is not under direct investigation by the FBI right now, including James Comey and Brennan and Mueller and all the rest of it, if this battleship does not go back on the offensive and use the guns that it's there for, then it's going to be a lot closer than it should be. And when I say the big guns, I'm talking in two areas here. I'm talking, first of all, on one area, what the president has the constitutional authority to do in order to launch investigations of his own to show that this is a witch hunt, has been from the beginning, invented by the person who was complicit in all this stuff. So the whole kind of legal structure, that's one thing. But the big guns, the real big guns, is for somebody like Donald Trump to stand in front of the American people and say, listen, do we have the presumption of innocence, yes or no? I know those of you who are under 30 years old have no idea what I'm talking about, so let me explain it to you. There are 2 systems of legal trial in the world, and one of them basically says that if you're accused of a crime, you're guilty until you're proven innocent. Our system says, no, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. Let me tell you what the flaws of each one of these systems is. The flaws of the first system, that you are guilty until proven innocent, means you'll get a lot more criminals in jail, but some innocent people will go free. Our system says, yes, some criminals will go free, but the innocent will not be put in prison or executed or whatever the case may be for crimes they didn't commit within the margin of error for error, right? And if somebody doesn't get out there and start talking about these foundational principles, and I don't mean in a lecture, I don't mean like Victor Davis Hanson or even you, especially you on Freedom's Charter, if somebody doesn't just get up there and say, if we don't understand that every single person in this country is innocent until and unless somebody can prove that they're guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, if we let that go, then we've lost the country. And he should make this a central issue of his reelection campaign. I suspect he's going to go with the witch hunt issue, which is true, but it's not nearly as powerful as the presumption of innocence
Just to
argument.
To clarify, because we do the show in real time, there's no script for it, and I know some people may have caught that little switch at the beginning. What Bill's saying about the system that presumes guilt and you have to prove innocence will send some innocent people to jail.
I'm sorry, did I
that's okay. You got that flipped a little bit at the end there. But I'd rather correct it now than have it corrected in the comments section.
Me too.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are grateful for the members at BillWhittle.com who make it possible for us to spend really hours of our lives that could be fruitfully employed loving our families and hanging out with our children, instead watching the Mueller testimony before Congress. But we are glad to bring this information to you to apply the news of the day to time-tested principles, and we know that you value that too. Thanks to the members for making this possible. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. If you'd like to join those members, by the way, go to BillWhittle.com and click that Become a Member link. Thank you.